This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Hey guys, good morning. So today I'm going to talk about data transforms in Pega. Okay. So what exactly is a data transform? As I always kept telling you, do not use activities as much as possible and look for a replacement to an activity. So we have learned about validations, which is a kind of replacement to activity to do validation instead of page set messages and property set messages. We can use validation rules. Instead of OBJ methods to fetch the data, I can use report definitions, right? Similarly, data transform is a substitute to an activity which can replace the property sets methods, okay, page new methods, page remove method, page property remove method, and looping, page copy. So few things like this we can do using a data transform. So basically data transform can do page copy, property set, copying from one page list to another page list, looping on the page list, sorting the data, page removes, property removes. So data transformation is data processing is what we can do in a data transform. So it is a substitute to these methods in the activity. Okay, page methods and few property methods in the activity you can replace using a data transform. Now let's see how to create a data transform. Right click on the class, create data model category data transform. Okay, now I'm just going to name it as learning DT because just we are trying to learn something from this data transform. Okay, unlike your activity, you have methods, you have preconditions, post conditions, step pages and all that, right? Here instead of methods you will see actions. These are not called as methods, they are called as actions, but very similar to your method. Okay, so set, it is just used to set a value to a property, just like property is set in an activity. Let's take one activity in parallel. Create activity, test activity. Okay. So what you do in a property set, you give some property and you give a value on the right hand side, right? So you give a property on the left hand side, some property on the left hand side and a value on the right hand side. It can be a hard coded value or you can pass another property here, right? Or you can even use the function library here, right? The same way property set, same thing. You give some property on the left side. Either you give another property on the right side, or you give a hard-coded value, or you can use a function library and you can call any function and do whatever you want. That's about set. Now what next? Remove. Do you have page removes and property removes here? Same thing there. Okay. If you want to remove a page or if you want to remove a property, we just use remove here. If you give property, that will be removed. If you give page here, that will be deleted from the clipboard. Now, update page, almost same like property set again. If I say property set, I can give a page name here, right? And on the left hand side, I give my property name. So temp dot account number is equal to something else you can give, right? Again, you say temp dot first name is equals to, excuse me, temp dot last name is equals to the same thing here. So you give your page name here, okay? Left hand side, whatever is your property, right hand side you give the value like this, and you add a now Just keep your pointer in 1.1 and click plus. If you keep your pointer in 1, you will get step 2. If you keep your pointer in 1.1, you will get 1.3. So please make sure where you are keeping your pointer before you click on the plus icon. Now, this is how you give properties and values using update page. Just you give a page name and you give the values. Now, what if I want to copy from another page? Like here, you can say like this, right? py workpage dot card number, right? And you can say py workpage dot first name. So how do you do it here? With values from py workpage. Okay. So if you want to copy from a different page, just give the other page here and the properties here. py workpage dot account number, py workpage dot card number, like this. Okay. So left hand side page and right hand side page, and you copy the values. Now what next? Apply data transform. One flow can call another flow. One activity can call another activity. One report definition can call another report definition. A validate rule can call another validate rule. Section can call another section. Similarly, data transform can call another data transform using a method called as apply data transform. This is very important from interview point of view. People ask you in the interviews how to call another data transform. Okay, so please remember this, how to call another data transform, in the sense this is how you have to call it. Okay, now give your data transform name. Whatever is your DT name, you have to give it here and you will be able to call it. And you learned about parameters in the last session, right? You were able to pass parameters from section to your data page to the report definition, and so on, right? So how can I pass parameters between data pages? Same way, just declare your data page here. Just whatever is your data page, please declare it here. If it is having any parameters, if you open the settings icon, the wrench icon, you can mention the parameters here. As of now, there are no parameters declared in this data transform, so it is not showing anything. Let's say if you declare anything here, I'm just saving it into my new version to make the changes. Okay. Let's say I declared any parameter, a parameter test1, test2, save. Okay, you will get the parameters like this and you can pass the values like this. It can be a property or it can be another parameter. Okay, this is also very important. How can you pass parameters to another data transform? Please remember that there is a wrench icon at the end, and if you click on it, you can pass the parameters. This is very important from interview point of view. Okay, this method and how do you pass parameters. Next, sorting. You just give a page list and you say whether you want it in ascending order or descending order. That's it. Suppose I have something called as countries.tx results. And you click on the settings icon, it will ask you based on which property you want to sort. Country name, what you want to sort, and ascending or descending. That's it. This is very similar to your OBJ sort. So you have a method here. Okay. Here also you give the page list name, you mention the property name, and you mention sorting ascending or descending. So almost the same. Now comment. You write down some comments here, right? In your activity, you can write some description here, a comment like this you write. So same thing in data transform. If you want to write any comments, you can write something here like this. Okay. Like this, you can write a comment so that the other developer will understand what exactly you're doing there, what is the coding that is happening there. Now, when conditions, just like in your activity, you have a when here and you have a when here, right? This is called as precondition, this is called as transition. So, same thing here. Suppose you want to execute a method based on a when condition. Write down your when condition here and you write down some logic. Just like here. First, you call the when condition, followed by that your method, right? Same way. First when condition, followed by that my method. It can be anything. It can be update page, it can be property set, it can be property remove, page remove, it can be anything. Okay. When condition, followed by that your method. So you only have preconditions here, no transition. There is no transition. Only when condition before the method execution. When condition after the method execution is not present here. Suppose you want to write when otherwise, otherwise, otherwise. So keep your pointer in step number 1, another when condition here. Keep your pointer in step number 2, another when condition here. So you can keep on writing as many when conditions as you want. Like if network is equal to Visa, otherwise when network is equal to MasterCard, otherwise when network is equal to Mastro. So you can write down multiple conditions like this. Now, same. If you have only one last when condition, you can say otherwise. Like for example, if network is equal to MasterCard or Mastro, this one, otherwise means anything other than this, you just want to keep it here. When otherwise, that's it. Anything other than these, I'll just set the values here. Okay. Then you have append to, very important from interview point of view. What is the difference between append to and append and map to? Frequently asked interview question. Those who ask questions on data transforms will never skip the question on append and append to and call superclass data transform. It's like very important from interview point of view when they ask you on data transforms. Difference between append to and append and map to. See, the purpose of append to and append to and map to is just a replacement to your page copy. Page copy method here. What do you do in page copy? You give a page name here, you give a page name here. Whatever data is present in this page will be copied to this page, right? That is the use of page copy. Now, same thing here. You give a page name here and page name here and page name here. It will copy the data. Okay. Or you can give a page list here and a page list here. It will copy the data. So basically, to copy data from one page to another page or from one page list to another page list, we use append to. Then what is append and map to? Same concept. To copy data from one page to another page or from one page list to another page list, we can use this. Generally, we use for page lists. Append to and append and map to, we generally use for page lists. Then why do we have two different methods? Two reasons. One, in this case, okay, your source page and destination page should belong to the same class. Okay. So if there is a page called as test data and there's another page called as temp. Let's say both of them belong to the work dash claims class. Now what will happen? They both will have same properties. So if you say page copy, directly it will take the data from X page and it will copy to Y page. No problem. But what if this belongs to data class and this belongs to work class? Then you have to manually mention in data class this is the property, in work class this is the property. You have to mention that, right? Otherwise, how can they blindly copy? Because they both belong to two different classes. They will have different properties. So they can't do a blind copy of data. In that case, we use append and map to. So in append and map to, they will ask you what is the source class property and what is the destination class property. Okay, so the major difference between append to and append and map to is, in case of append to, both the pages belong to the same class. So no need to explicitly mention the properties while copying. In append and map to, both the pages belong to different classes. So you have to explicitly mention what is the source page property and what is the destination page property. And the other importance of these two methods is, suppose on this page I have 20 properties. I want to copy only 5 of them into this. I don't want to dump everything. In that case, also we use append and map to. Although both the pages belong to same class, on this I have 20. I don't want all the 20. So whatever 5 I want, those 5 only I will copy like this. Okay. So we use this only when we want to copy some amount of data, not the whole thing. And the last one, looping. You have to loop on a page list and you want to copy the data. So we use for each page in. I'm going to teach you in practical about append to, append and map to, and for each page in. Okay. When you want to exit the loop, you can exit the for loop. On based on some condition, you want to come out of the loop, you can use it. You want to come out of the data transform, exit data transform.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So exit data transform is just like your exit activity method here. So for any reason, if you want to come out of the activity, you say exit activity, right? You have used exit activity mostly in the preconditions. Do you remember this? We have used it, right? The same way here, exit data transform, just to come out of the data transform. How about this one? Exit for each. Suppose you're in a loop, you have 10 results. If anybody, did not meet the criteria, you want to come out of the loop. You say exit for each. So you come out of the loop using this. Okay. Now let me show you some basic intro about set method in activity. Sorry, in data transform. Then I'll teach you some requirements in your project. Okay. So set method. It can set values to a property, to a page, page list, page group, value group, anything. Okay. Let's say, for example, I want to set value to a property, account number. I've given some value. Save. Okay. Actions. Run. Run again. You will see the output in the form of XML. Do you see? Account number value got set to this. You can also check it on the clipboard. On run, record primary page. Do you remember this? I told you this is the primary page for activities and data transforms. When you run them, stand alone. When you run it from your work object, py work page or some other step page will become the primary page. But as of now, when you're running it standalone, run record primary page, you can say account number got set. So this is a single valued property. Let's say I want to set some values to a value list or a value group. Take any value list value group properties. Create a property. Okay. Email IDs. Okay. I'm going to create this as a value list. Value list. Save. Dot email IDs of 1 equal to Nikhila at the rate gmail.com. It's a string, so I'm giving it in quotations. Check out. Save. Similarly, value list, right? Subscript is a integer. Save. Actions. Run. run. You can see it here. It's a value list. Okay. And both the values are getting set. Let's check on the clipboard as well. Standard thread run record primary page. You can see it's a value list. Expand run record primary page. You will see the property values like this. Okay. Value list. How about a value group? Create another property, or we can even use the OOTB property. We have an OOTB property, EY, you know, work party is a page group, I think. Okay, fine. Let's create a value group, create addresses. I'm going to mark this as value group, means subscript is going to be a string, not an integer. Unlike value list, value group subscript is a string, right? So addresses of home and give some address here. Another step, address of office, save. Actions, run, run. You can see here, okay, it's a subscript. This one, subscript is office and home. Here, subscript is 1 and 2. Let's check on the clipboard. Expand it. Address, you can see, subscript, emails, value list, value group. So using a DT, data transform, I can even do set values for both page list, page group, value list, and value groups. Now, one second. So let's try for page list and page group. So for page list, let's create a page list here. Create property. I'm going to call it as my transactions list. And it is going to be a page list. So they'll ask you which class properties you want to store on this. You can store the same work class properties, or you can give any data class properties or int class properties. Any class properties you can give here, no restriction. So I will give my data class properties in this. Okay. So on this page list, data class properties will come. So go here. What's your page list name? My tran list, right? Take it. Dot. You can see data class properties are coming. Okay. But do you remember page list will have that subscript, right? So my tran list of 1 dot, first I will give the property name. Okay. And then I will write like this, 1 is equals to something like this. Add another step, 2 is equals to something like this. This is page list. See, it's a page list. Okay. Now go to the clipboard, As always, standard thread and run record primary page. And you can see it's a page list. Look at the structure on the clipboard. Value list, value group is like this, page list is like this. You can see. Okay. Now going to page groups. Okay. So there is actually a OOTB page group. Let's make use of that. Work party. You can say there's a property called as py work party. It's a page group. It belongs to data dash party class. So we can make use of that, or you can create your own property of type page group. I'm using this OOTB property. Click on the more work party. It's a page group. Okay. So subscript is a string. It's not an integer. So I'll just take something, like PYCT. Okay. Subscript. Where is the subscript? That's a page group, right? So subscript is a string. So I will say manager. Work party means some interested people in the case progress. People who are interested in the case progress, we call them as work parties. Owner. Okay. Actions. Run. Run again. Visit the clipboard. Standard thread, because we are running this data transform standalone. And you can see there's a page group here. The subscript is a string. Do you see this in the brackets? It's written, and whatever you have set on the right side. Okay. So this is how you basically work with the set method, just to set values to the properties. Okay. You can set anything. It can set for a single valid property, value list, value group, page group, anything you can do. Now, in the next session, I'm going to teach you how to, you know, use this data transform in your project. Before that, some important things I would like to cover. Every time you create a new class in Pega, by default, Pega will give you two data transforms, py default and py set defaults. If you see this inside py default, they are calling py set defaults. Now, what is the use of these two transforms? Why is Pega giving this? Those who know Java, okay, you should have heard about constructors in Java, right? So, whenever you create a work object, this constructor rule will automatically get triggered, and whatever properties you are setting inside that, those property values will automatically get initiated. Similarly, in Pega, py default data transforms gets triggered immediately when you create a work object. So if you want to set any default values to a work object, you can set it in the py default data transform or py set default data transform. Okay. So you can see by default they're giving the urgency as 10 here. By default, I'm configuring a SLA called as case level SLA, which we have configured in the SLAs topic, right? So like this, by default, if you want any values to be set immediately when you create a work object, you can do it here. Like for example, whenever you create a work object, by default I want the country, state and city to be these values, or by default I want the customer contact number to be this one, or by default I want the customer email ID to be this one. So if you want any default things to be shown on the work object, we use this. Like for example, I can say by default the urgency should be 30. Now create a work object. You can see it went to 60. Why? Because In the case level SLA, we are incrementing the urgency by 30. So 30 plus 30, it became 60. Let me remove it and create a new work object. By default, the urgency is 30. Okay. Let's say I want to set some default value for my account number. Account number I want by default to be, no, by default it came, but wait. Okay. You can see by default account number is coming. But why it got nullified? On change of this radio button, we wrote an activity to nullify these properties, right? So that's the reason it got nullified. But you can see by default, this one is coming. So like this, if you want to set any values by default, generally we set the SLA names, priorities, default, email IDs, default countries, default time zones, anything like that based on your client requirement. If you want to set, we use PY default and PY set defaults. Very important from interview point of view. What is the default data transforms that get created when you create a new class in Pega? PY default and PY set defaults. Okay, remember this. And where are these called from? They are basically called from your case type rule. So in the case type rule settings, this data transform is getting triggered. That is the reason whenever you create a new work object, this will be automatically called. Okay. And another most important interview question in this topic is call superclass data transform. So people ask you, what is the use of this checkbox called superclass data transform? Superclass means parent class. Now, what is called superclass data transform? Suppose if you have another data transform with exactly the same name in the parent class and you want to call it, then we enable this checkbox call superclass data transform. If you don't want that to be called, please remove this checkbox. Okay. So let's say, for example, here you have a data transform called as learning DT, right? With exactly the same name, I will create one in the parent class. Save as. I'm creating one in the parent class. Okay. And the parent class, I will only keep few fields. I'll not keep all these things. Okay. I will remove this. And instead of Vizag, I will write. Okay. So in the parent class, it is Vishakhapatnam. And in the child class, it is Vizag and Hyderabad. Okay. Now let's see how it works. This is my child class, right? Now I have a checkbox called superclass data transform. So if there is any rule with exactly the same name in the parent class, in any of the parent classes, your entire inheritance, in any of the parent classes, if you have a rule with exactly the same name, it will be triggered. Let's see how it works. Or I'll also add some more here. Instead of Visakhapatnam, otherwise I'll say Varangal. So that okay, run the child, not the parent. Okay, run the child, and child should have this checkbox called superclass data transform. Run, go to clipboard, run record primary page, expand, py work party. You see Vizag is there, you see Hyderabad is there, but Varangal is not there. Why? I'll tell you. Let's say instead of that we'll do another one. We will say dot. Is there a property called as test? Okay. Test is equal to, is this a text or integer? It's a text. Okay. Test is equal to parent class. Now run the child data transform. Run. Clipboard. Run record primary page. Do you see? Test is equal to parent class is coming. Okay. How about the PY work party? Warangal is not coming. Why? See, when you say call superclass data transform, what will happen? Let me show you in the tracer. Run. Turn on the tracer. Run. Look at this. Learning DT of work dash claims class got triggered. Why is parent not displaying in this? One second, it is not showing in this. Okay, because I kept trace open. That could be the reason. Let me turn on full tracer. Okay, please keep full tracer. Now you can see first parent class rule got triggered. Work class learning DT. But which rule did I execute? I executed child class. But which one got triggered first? Parent class got triggered first. After that, you see data transform end and data transform begin. Now the child class DT got triggered. Very important interview question. If I enable call superclass data transform, which will get triggered first, parent or child? First, parent will get triggered. After that, child will get triggered. Why is that? See, parent class will have some generic code. Child class will have the code which is very specific to their class, right? So first we will call the parent class code which is generic code. In the parent class code, I am setting the city as Varangal. Okay, with owner, work party of owner city as Varangal. If you see here, before this data transform ends, if you see here, you see Varangal got set for owner. This is from the parent. Now, when I call the child, they are overriding it. Okay, they are replacing Varangal with the values that you have in the child. So first, that is the reason we call parent. So whatever generic data is there, we will get it. If you want to override anything in the child, you can override it. If you don't override, they will stay. Like in the parent, you got the value of test, right? You got the value of test as parent class. You didn't override that in the child class, so it remained the same. If you have overridden it, it would also have changed. So if a parent class is having 10 properties, out of 10, 3 you want to override. You can override them in the child class. And remaining 7 you can get from the parent. So that is the benefit of superclass data transform. If you have some data in the parent class and if you want to reuse some of them and you want to override some of them, we use this called superclass data transform so that some data from the parent and some from the child. If you think no, 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 I don't want the parent completely, please remove this checkbox. It will not be triggered. So important interview questions in this: append to and append to map to differences. Call superclass data transform checkbox. Okay, and how do you pass parameters for a calling data transform? Okay, and py default and py default data transforms, py default and py set data defaults data transform importance. Okay, other than this you can also expect questions on some of the functions that we use in data transform, which I'm going to cover in the later sessions. So that's it on the intro about data transform, guys.